The morning sun flooded Henry Cole's office through the expansive window that overlooked Park Avenue. At 42, he was considered one of the most successful businessmen in the country, with an empire that spanned from technology to infrastructure. But at that moment, sitting in his Italian leather chair, Henry didn't feel powerful. His bloodshot eyes were fixed on the silver frame on his desk, where the toothless grin of Melissa, his 8-year-old daughter, seemed to mock his helplessness. 3 months, 90 days since she had vanished without a trace. The memory still tormented him with cruel clarity. That weekend at Dine, the family's estate in the Hudson Valley was supposed to have been special. Patricia, his wife of 5 years, had insisted they go to celebrate her birthday at the country property she had inherited from her late first husband. Henry had agreed, hoping the trip would bring the girl closer to her stepmother, a relationship that had always been cordial but distant. On Saturday morning, after breakfast, Melissa had asked for permission to explore the orchard behind the main house. Patricia had offered to go with her, but the girl insisted on going alone, as she always did. Henry could still remember the kiss she'd planted on his forehead, her light footsteps as she went down the wooden porch steps, the way her braids swung as she ran toward the century-old oak trees. She never came back. The search had mobilized the police, firefighters, neighbors, and even volunteers from nearby towns. They combed every inch of the 500-acre property. All they found was a single blue hair ribbon near a creek that bordered a dense forest. The forensics team suggested Melissa might have gotten lost in the thick woods and been swept away by the current after a fall. No body, no concrete evidence, just painful assumptions and a void impossible to fill. Henry had buried himself in work as a way to escape the pain, but his concentration had abandoned him. Major contracts were lost, meetings were cancelled. His younger brother, Lucas, had gradually taken the reins of the company, claiming Henry needed time to recover. Patricia had become his only emotional anchor, caring for him with a dedication that bordered on maternal, preparing his meals, organizing his schedule, and turning away inconvenient visitors. A soft touch on his shoulder pulled him from his memories. Patricia was there, elegant, in her cream-colored suit, her blonde hair tied in a flawless bun. She placed a steaming cup of tea on the desk and caressed his face with a studied tenderness. "Henry, you need to eat something. You've barely touched your food in 2 days." He looked away, unable to bear the compassion in her eyes. "I'm not hungry, Patricia." "I know it's hard, my love. But you have to take care of yourself. Melissa wouldn't want to see you like this, wasting away." His daughter's name on her lips always sounded strange. Patricia had never shown any real affection for the girl. Polite tolerance, perhaps. Formal cordiality. But love. Henry had never sensed genuine love in that relationship, though he chided himself for the thought. Maybe it was just grief distorting his perception. "I'll try," he murmured, picking up the cup more out of obligation than desire. "Good. And don't forget, Lucas is coming for dinner tonight. He wants to discuss the contracts for the expansion into the Sun Belt. He needs your signature on a few documents." Henry nodded vaguely. Lucas, his kid brother, always in the shadow of his success, now taking the lead role Henry could no longer sustain. There was something in the subtext of recent conversations between Lucas and Patricia that bothered him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe the pain was sharpening his instincts. After Patricia left, Henry brought the cup to his lips. The tea had a bitter taste, slightly different than usual. He frowned but drank it anyway. For the past few months, everything seemed to taste like ash. His cell phone vibrated. Another condolence text from some industry executive. Henry ignored it. Words of comfort had lost their meaning weeks ago. Nothing could fill the void Melissa had left. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, in a modest house hidden among apple orchards in a small rural town in upstate New York, Melissa Cole woke with a start. The room was small, with peeling walls and a single barred window that barely let in any light. The girl sat up on the thin mattress, hugging her knees to her chest. Her brown hair, once always neatly brushed by her father, now fell in a tangled mess over her shoulders. Her dress, the same one she'd been wearing the day she disappeared, was dirty and wrinkled. She knew where she was. She knew who had brought her here, and most importantly, she knew why. The door creaked open. Melissa flinched instinctively as the woman entered. It wasn't a stranger. It was Celia, the former housekeeper of Patricia's estate, a woman in her 50s with a sun-weathered face and calloused hands. But in her eyes, there was no malice, only a deep sadness and something Melissa had learned to recognize: fear. "Brought you breakfast, kiddo," Celia murmured, placing a simple tray on the small wooden table. "There's toast with butter and orange juice." Melissa didn't move. "Aunt Celia, does my dad know I'm here?" The woman looked away, her hands trembling slightly. "You know I can't talk about that child. He must be hurting so much." Melissa felt tears burn her eyes. "He thinks I'm dead, that I got lost in the woods." Celia closed her eyes for a moment, as if fighting against an invisible weight. "I'm so sorry, Melissa. I really am. But if I don't do what they told me, they'll hurt my family. My grandson is the same age as you. They said they'd—" Her voice broke. Melissa understood. Celia wasn't a villain. She was just another piece in a cruel game the girl didn't yet fully comprehend. "I won't run away," Melissa said softly. "Not today. But one day, Aunt Celia, I'm going back to my dad, and I'm going to find out why they did this to me." Celia nodded in silence and left, locking the door carefully behind her. Alone again, Melissa went to the window. Through the bars, she could see the green horizon of the orchards. Somewhere beyond those hills, her father was alive, breathing, existing without knowing she was too. The thought was both a knife and a comfort. She didn't completely understand the snippets of conversation she'd overheard before being brought here. Something about inheritance, about papers, about an empire that would be worth more without her in the way. They were adult words, complex, full of hidden meanings. But one thing Melissa knew with absolute certainty: Patricia was involved, and probably Lucas too. The memory of the last look she'd gotten from her stepmother before everything went dark that day at the estate still haunted her. It wasn't a look of concern, it was one of cold satisfaction, of a mission accomplished. Melissa clenched her small fists. Being 8 wouldn't stop her from being smart. She would watch, she would listen, she would learn, and when the time was right, she would find a way back. Because Henry Cole needed to know the truth, and she would be the one to tell him. Back in New York, dinner was beginning in Henry's penthouse. The mahogany table was set with an elegance that was unnecessary for just 3 people. Lucas had arrived on time with his leather briefcase and confident smile. Patricia had made a point of personally preparing Henry's favorite dishes, a gesture that should have moved him, but only intensified the strange feeling that had been hounding him. "We need to talk about the Tech-Nova merger," Lucas began, pouring himself some wine. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it requires a quick decision. Your vote as the majority shareholder is essential." Henry poked at the food on his plate. "You know I trust your judgment, Lucas. This isn't about trust, bro. It's about the future of the company. Your future." Lucas's eyes gleamed with something Henry couldn't decipher. "With everything that's happened, maybe it's time you considered passing more responsibilities to me." "Officially." Patricia touched Henry's hand. "He's right, honey. You need time to heal. Let Lucas handle the business. I'll take care of you." Henry looked at them both, his brother, his wife, the 2 people he trusted most. So why was every fiber of his being screaming that something was wrong? "I'll think about it," he replied, pushing away his barely touched plate. But as Lucas and Patricia exchanged quick glances across the table, Henry made a silent decision. He would investigate, discreetly, because no father rests as long as there's the slightest possibility his daughter is still alive. And Henry Cole was just beginning to suspect that Melissa wasn't lost. She was hidden, and he would find out by whom. The early morning hours found Henry awake, sitting in his private library. Around him, mahogany shelves held decades of business memories, but his attention was on a simple cardboard box he'd brought from the closet. Inside were photographs of Melissa at different ages, drawings she'd made in school, a pink notebook where she jotted down her childhood dreams. He picked up a photo taken 2 months before the disappearance. Melissa was smiling next to Patricia during a Sunday lunch. Girl looked uncomfortable, the smile not reaching her eyes. How had he not noticed that before? Or maybe he had, and had chosen to ignore it, trusting that time would bring his stepdaughter and her stepmother closer. His phone vibrated, a message from Robert Miller, his lawyer and longtime friend. Henry had called him a few hours earlier, asking for a delicate favor, to discreetly investigate the recent financial movements of Lucas and Patricia. Robert was old school, as trustworthy as they come. The message was brief. I need to see you, in person. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, my office. Come alone. Henry felt his stomach tighten. Robert wasn't one for drama. If he was asking for secrecy, there was a reason. Henry, Patricia's voice echoed from the hallway. You didn't come to bed? He quickly put his phone away and closed the box. Couldn't sleep. Was just reminiscing. Patricia entered wearing a white silk robe, her loose hair framing her face. She was beautiful. Henry couldn't deny that. He'd met her at a charity event 3 years after the death of Clara, his first wife. Patricia had been a widow too, understanding, elegant, exactly the kind of person society expected him to choose. The wedding had happened too fast, he realized now. 6 months of dating, a quiet ceremony, and Melissa had gained a stepmother she'd never asked for. You need to rest, Patricia said, approaching him. These sleepless nights are getting worse. Maybe we should increase the dose of the medication Dr. Evans prescribed. I don't want any more medication, Henry replied, sharper than he'd intended. I want answers. Answers about what? About Melissa. About why they never found a body. About why I gave up looking so easily. Patricia sighed, sitting down next to him. Henry, we didn't give up. The police did everything they could. You know the woods are dangerous, that wild animal. Stop. He held up a hand. Just stop. The silence that followed was thick. Patricia studied his face, as if calculating her next move. Finally, she touched his face with manufactured tenderness. I just want you to get better, to go back to being the strong man I met. Henry pulled away from her touch. I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. I need some space. Patricia's mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing something cold in her eyes. But she quickly composed herself. As you wish, darling. As Henry walked to the guest room, he didn't see the smile that curved Patricia's lips as soon as he turned his back. Nor did he notice her pick up her phone and quickly type, He's getting suspicious. We need to speed things up. The next morning, Henry woke up feeling strangely better. His head was clearer than it had been in months. He realized he hadn't drunk the tea Patricia insisted on making for him every night. A coincidence. He decided to test a theory. During breakfast, he accepted the orange juice she offered, but discreetly poured half of it into a nearby potted plant while she took a call. I need to go to the office to sort some things out, Henry announced, grabbing his car keys. Do you want Lucas to go with you? Patricia asked, too quickly. No, I'm going alone. Robert Miller's office was in a sleek building in Midtown. Henry entered through the garage, avoiding cameras and curious eyes. The lawyer was waiting for him with the door closed and a brown folder on his desk. Sit down, Henry, you're going to need to. Robert was a man in his 60s with graying hair and a sharp gaze that had seen through corporate lies for decades. He opened the folder and spread documents across the table. You asked me to look into financial movements. I found things I wasn't expecting. Henry leaned forward, his heart racing. In the last 6 months, Lucas has set up 3 offshore companies, all with Patricia as a co-signer. They've moved substantial amounts, transferring assets from your main holding company into these accounts. Is that illegal? Technically, no. You signed a power of attorney, giving Lucas broad powers while you were grieving. He's using it, Robert paused. But there's more, Henry, a lot more. Go on. I started digging into Patricia's past. Her first husband didn't die of natural causes like she claimed. There was an investigation. Suspicions of financial manipulation, of involvement in a real estate fraud scheme. It was never proven, but the man died suddenly a month before he could testify against his partners. Henry felt the floor drop out from under him. And Lucas? Your brother is in debt up to his eyeballs. Gambling, bad investments, a lifestyle his salary at the company can't support. He desperately needed your fortune. The room spun. Henry held onto the desk. Melissa, do you think they... Robert placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. I don't have proof, but my gut tells me you need to investigate her disappearance again. This time, without trusting anyone connected to Lucas or Patricia. Henry nodded, his mind working at lightning speed. I need a private investigator, the best there is. Already on it. Robert slid a business card across the table. Joanna Fisher, former FBI agent, specializes in complex cases. She's waiting for your call. As Henry left the office with the card, in his pocket, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months, hope mixed with fury. If Lucas and Patricia had done something to Melissa, he would destroy them both. But first, he needed hard proof. In upstate New York, Melissa was sitting on the floor of her room, drawing in an old notebook Celia had given her. She drew the mansion in New York, the garden where she used to play, her father's office. Every detail was a way to keep the memory alive, to not forget who she was. The door opened. Celia came in with a worried expression. Melissa, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise you'll stay quiet no matter what you hear. I promise. Celia sat down next to her, her voice low. Last night, the missus called, said things are getting complicated in the city, that they might need to move you somewhere else farther away. Panic rose in Melissa's throat. Father? Where? I don't know, but I heard her talking about Mr. Cole asking questions, looking into things. She was nervous. Melissa's heart pounded. Dad is looking for me. He doesn't believe I'm dead? Celia took the girl's small hands. I shouldn't be telling you this, but you're just a kid and this is all wrong, so wrong. If I could do things differently. You can, Melissa interrupted, her eyes shining with determination. Aunt Celia, you can help me send a message to my dad. Something to prove I'm alive. Kiddo, if they find out, they'll hurt my grandson. They won't find out. Melissa squeezed her hands. Please. Just a letter. Or a note. Anything. I'll write it, and you can leave it somewhere my dad can find it. A place only he would know. Celia closed her eyes, torn between fear and her conscience. Finally, she nodded. What do you have in mind? Melissa took the notebook and carefully tore out a page. She began to write in her childish but firm handwriting. Daddy, I'm alive. Don't look for me yet. They're watching you. Trust yourself. Remember our secret spot. You're Mel. She folded the paper and handed it to Celia. Our secret spot is a tree in the garden of the mansion. It has a heart carved into the trunk. Inside a hole in the tree, we used to leave messages for each other. If you can put this there. Celia took the paper, her hands trembling. I'll try. I have a cousin who works as a cleaner in a building near the mansion. I can ask her to leave it there when she visits her sister who lives in the neighborhood. Thank you, Melissa whispered, hugging the woman. You're a good person. I know you are. After Celia left, Melissa returned to the window. Hope was a small flame, but it was enough to warm her. Her father was looking. He hadn't given up on her, and now if everything went right, he would know the truth. Back in New York, Henry was at home when his cell phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Joanna Fisher. Robert Miller gave me your contact information. The voice was firm, professional. Henry felt a strange sense of relief. I need your services. I'm on my way. Can we meet in an hour? There's a quiet cafe on Bleecker Street. I'll be there. Henry hung up and looked around. Patricia was at the gym, Lucas in a meeting. He had time. He grabbed his keys and left quietly. He didn't know it yet, but in a few hours, a small folded piece of paper would change everything. Because while he was meeting with Joanna, Celia's cousin was discreetly entering the garden of the Cole mansion, looking for a tree with a carved heart. And inside it, she placed the hope of an 8-year-old girl who refused to disappear. The cafe on Bleecker Street was low-key, frequented by students and artists, far from Henry's social circles. Joanna Fisher was already sitting at a table in the back when he arrived. She was a woman of about 35, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and an observant gaze that missed nothing. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, nothing flashy. "Mr. Cole," she greeted, shaking his hand firmly. "Henry, please. Mr. Cole makes me feel older than I am." A faint smile crossed her face. "Henry, then. Robert gave me a rundown of the situation. Your daughter's disappearance 3 months ago, suspicions about your wife and brother. But I need to hear it from you, from the beginning." Henry told her everything. The weekend at the estate, Melissa's disappearance, the fruitless search, the changes in Lucas and Patricia's behavior, the documents Robert had uncovered. Joanna listened intently, occasionally jotting notes in a small notebook. "Do you think your daughter could be alive?" she asked directly. Henry took a deep breath. "My head says no, that it's impossible. But my heart tells me I would know if she were gone. I would feel it. And I don't. I just feel empty." Joanna nodded. "I've seen a lot of cases, Henry, and I've learned to trust a parent's instinct. I'll investigate as if she's alive and being hidden. If I'm wrong, at least we'll have certainty. If I'm right—" She paused. "We'll bring her home." "Where do you start?" "With the estate. I need to go there, retrace her steps, talk to anyone who was present that day. Does your wife still go to the property?" "Rarely. She says it brings back too many painful memories." Joanna jotted something down. "Interesting. And the staff who worked there?" "Most of them were let go after it happened. Patricia said she couldn't bear to keep the estate running." "Even more interesting." Joanna closed her notebook. "I'll need names, addresses, everything you have on these people. And I need you to keep acting normally. You can't raise any suspicion." "That's going to be difficult. Every time I look at Patricia, I feel angry." "Then use that anger, observe, take note of conversations, look for inconsistencies. You're a businessman. You know how to catch people in lies during negotiations. Apply that here." Henry nodded, feeling useful for the first time in months. "How long could this take?" "Depends on what I find. But I promise you one thing. I won't stop until I have answers." After the meeting, Henry returned home feeling energized. He walked through the front door and found Lucas in the living room, drinking scotch as if he owned the place. "Henry, I thought you were resting." "Went out for some air to talk to Robert about some pending matters." Lucas's eyes narrowed imperceptibly. "Matters I should know about?" "Personal issues, nothing related to the company." Patricia came down the stairs at that moment, wearing a blue dress Henry had bought for her months ago. She was especially dressed up for a night at home. "Darling, I didn't know you were back. I made your favorite for dinner. Beef stroganoff, just how you like it." Henry forced a smile. "How thoughtful, but I'm not very hungry." "You need to eat, Henry," Lucas intervened, pouring himself more scotch. "You're getting too thin. You need your strength for when you come back to run the company." "If he comes back," Patricia corrected softly, touching Henry's shoulder. "We don't want to pressure him." "When?" Lucas repeated, ignoring her. "He'll be back." "Right, bro." Henry watched the subtle tension between them. There were cracks in the facade. Maybe he could exploit them. "Actually, I've been thinking, maybe you're both right. I need to start getting more involved. Lucas, how about we schedule a meeting next week? I want to review all the contracts that have been signed since I stepped back." Lucas's face went slightly pale. "All of them?" "All of them. I'm still the owner of the company, after all. I need to know what's been going on." Of course you do." Lucas downed the rest of his scotch in one gulp. "I'll arrange everything." After the awkward dinner, Henry retreated to his room. But he couldn't sleep. He decided to do something he hadn't done in weeks. Walk through the garden. The night was clear, the moon illuminating the ancient trees that surrounded the property. His steps led him almost unconsciously to the old oak tree at the back of the garden. There, carved into the trunk years ago, was a crude heart he and Melissa had made together. Inside the heart were the initials H+M. It was their secret spot, where they exchanged silly notes, where Melissa would leave drawings for her father to find. Henry ran his hand over the trunk, the nostalgia a sharp pain in his chest. Then he felt something strange. The natural hollow in the trunk, where they used to leave their messages, had something inside. With his heart pounding, he reached in and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Under the moonlight, he read the words written in unmistakable childish handwriting. "Daddy, I'm alive. Don't look for me yet. They're watching you. Trust yourself. Remember our secret spot. Your Mel." Henry's legs gave out. He fell to his knees, clutching the paper to his chest. Tears streamed down his face uncontrollably. She was alive. Melissa was alive. But along with the overwhelming joy came a brutal clarity. Patricia and Lucas had hidden his daughter. They had kidnapped her. They were keeping her somewhere while pretending to comfort him. The fury Henry felt in that moment was unlike anything he had ever experienced. But Melissa's message was clear. Don't look for me yet. They're watching. His daughter was protecting him, being smarter than he'd given her credit for. Henry put the paper in his pocket and walked back to the house with steady steps. He entered silently, went up the stairs. As he passed the bedroom he shared with Patricia, he heard muffled voices. She was on the phone. He leaned against the wall, listening. No, he hasn't signed everything yet. He's starting to ask questions, Patricia was saying, her voice tense. Lucas is nervous. He thinks we should accelerate the plan. Silence as she listened to the reply. I know the girl is a problem, but we can't just... She paused. Fine. I'll arrange for her transfer farther away. Maybe to your cousin's ranch in Montana. Too far to ever be found. Henry clenched his fists. They were going to move Melissa. He had to act fast. He took out his phone and sent a message to Joanna. Confirmed. My daughter is alive and hidden. They plan to move her. I need you here first thing tomorrow. The reply came in seconds. I'll be there. We're going to bring your daughter home. Henry lay down in the guest room but didn't sleep. He planned. Melissa needed him to be smart, not impulsive. He had to be the strategic businessman he had always been. But now he was fighting for the most important thing, his family. In the house in upstate New York, Melissa was also awake. Celia had returned that afternoon and whispered that her cousin had managed to leave the message. Now it was a matter of time. Her father would know. He would come for her. But that night, something changed. Melissa heard the sound of a car arriving, unfamiliar voices, heavy footsteps. She pressed her ear to the door and heard snippets of the conversation. Gotta be quiet. The boss wants her gone, far away. What about the old woman? A gruff male voice asked. She's going too. Can't have her sticking around knowing everything. Melissa felt a surge of panic. They were going to move her, and Celia was in danger for helping her. She looked around the small room. The window had bars, but they were old. Melissa was thin. If she could, just bend one of the rusty bars. With a determination that would have surprised any adult, the 8-year-old girl began to work on the grate. She used the metal bed frame as a lever. The rust helped. After 20 minutes of silent effort, one of the bars gave way just enough to create a narrow opening. Melissa was small. She would fit. She waited until the house fell silent. Around 3 a.m., when even the goons were asleep, she squeezed through the opening. The bar scraped her arms, but she bit her lip to keep from crying out. With one final push, she was outside. The cold night air hit her face. She was barefoot, wearing only the thin dress, but she was free. She looked around, getting her bearings from the stars as her father had taught her on camping trips. New York City was to the southeast. It was far, too far for a little girl on foot. But Melissa Cole wasn't going to give up. She started running toward the dirt road, disappearing into the darkness. Inside the house, Celia woke up with a bad feeling. She got up and went to Melissa's room. The door was locked as always. She opened it with her key and turned on the light. The bed was empty. The window with one bar bent out of shape. Celia brought a hand to her mouth, torn between terror and admiration. The girl had escaped. And when they found out in the morning, all hell would break loose. But for now, Melissa had a head start. And in New York City, her father was already armed with the truth, ready to destroy anyone who dared to mess with his family. Dawn was painting the sky orange when Melissa finally reached the highway. Her feet were bleeding, her dress was torn by bushes, and the pre-dawn chill had left her lips purple. But she kept walking, shuffling along the shoulder of the road, hiding whenever a car approached. She couldn't trust strangers, not yet. A sign read, New York City, 170 miles. The distance was impossible on foot. Melissa sat on a rock, shivering, trying to think like her dad would. Henry always said, when you have a big problem, break it into small problems. Problem 1, she was cold. Problem 2, she needed help. Problem 3, she couldn't trust anyone connected to Patricia or Lucas. She saw a small church in the distance, in the village that formed around the bend in the road. Churches were safe places. Her maternal grandmother had always said so. Gathering what little strength she had left, Melissa walked toward it. Father Anthony was sweeping the entrance when he saw the thin, dirty, barefoot girl climbing the steps. The 60-year-old man's heart ached. My goodness, child, what happened to you? Melissa looked up at him with brown eyes full of tears she refused to shed. Please, I need to call my dad. It's an emergency. Inside the rectory, the priest offered her water, bread, and a warm blanket. Melissa ate slowly, her hands shaking. Father Anthony didn't ask questions. He just waited. Decades of hearing confessions had taught him that people talk when they're ready. Finally, Melissa whispered, My name is Melissa Cole. My dad is Henry Cole from New York City. People think I'm dead, but they hid me. I ran away. I need to talk to him, but I can't call from my number because they might be tracking it. Father Anthony remained calm, though inside he was stunned. The name Henry Cole was known nationwide, and if this little girl was telling the truth, I'll help you, he said gently. But first, let's take care of those cuts. Then you can call your father. While Melissa's feet were being bandaged by Sister Frances, who helped at the parish, Father Anthony discreetly searched for news about the disappearance. He found articles from 3 months ago. The photo of Melissa was identical to the girl in his house, only healthier and happier. The story checked out. In New York City, Henry was in the conference room of his home with Joanna Fisher. On the table was a map of the region where Patricia's estate was located, financial documents, and Melissa's note, protected in a plastic bag. I need to track down the staff who were let go, Joanna was explaining. One of them might know where your daughter is. I've already located 3. I'm starting the interviews today. How much time do we have before they move her? Hard to say, but from the conversation you overheard, it's a matter of days. Henry's cell phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Hello? Mr. Henry Cole? Yes. Who is this? This is Father Anthony from St. Jude's Parish in Pine Creek, New York. Do you have a daughter named Melissa? The world stopped. Henry gripped the table. I do. Why? Because she's here with me, alive, and asking for you. Henry almost dropped the phone. Joanna stood up immediately, sensing the urgency. Is she okay? Henry managed to ask, his voice breaking. Scared, feet are cut up, thin, but alive and brave. She escaped from where they were keeping her. Don't hang up, don't let her leave. I'm on my way now. He looked at Joanna. How long to Pine Creek? By car, about 4 hours, Joanna answered, already grabbing her keys. Father, I'll be there in 4 hours. Protect my daughter, please. Don't you worry, my son. She's safe here. Then Henry heard the voice he hadn't heard in 3 months. Daddy? Mel, sweetheart, is that you? It's me, Daddy. I'm alive. They hid me, but I ran away. I found your note in the tree. I mean, you found mine first, right? I found it, sweetheart, and I'm coming to get you now. Don't go anywhere, stay with the priest. Daddy's on his way. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, more than anything in this world. After hanging up, Henry stood still for a moment, letting the realization wash over him. Melissa was alive, truly alive. Then the adrenaline kicked in. Let's go, he said to Joanna. And we need to be discreet. If Patricia or Lucas find out I'm going to get Melissa, they'll try to stop you, Joanna completed. I'll drive. You call Robert, update him. We're going to need legal protection when we get back." On the way, Henry made more calls, to Robert, who immediately started preparing a protective order, to a trusted doctor, who agreed to be on standby, to 2 discreet security guards who worked with Joanna, asking them to keep an eye on the mansion. "Did you tell your wife you were leaving?" Joanna asked as she drove up the Taconic State Parkway. "I left a note saying I went to handle some company business in Albany. She'll believe it. And when you come back with Melissa, that's when the game changes." Henry had a determined glint in his eyes. "I want them to condemn themselves with their own words. I want irrefutable proof before I make a move." Back at the mansion in New York, Patricia found Henry's note. She frowned. He rarely traveled without telling her. She picked up the phone and called Lucas. "Henry left for Albany without really telling me." "He's been acting strange," Lucas replied, his voice tense. "Yesterday he asked to review all the contracts. I think he's suspicious." "Impossible. We've been careful." "Maybe not careful enough." Lucas paused. "And there's another problem. I called the house upstate. The girl escaped during the night." "What?" Patricia sat down abruptly. "How did that happen?" "I don't know. Bent a bar and got out. The guys are looking for her, but she has an hours-long head start. If she gets to someone and tells them, that's why I'm saying we need to act now. Transfer everything today while Henry's away. Later, if the girl shows up, it'll be her word against ours. A traumatized kid with a wild imagination." Patricia bit her lip. "Are you sure?" "I am. I'll get the final papers ready. By tomorrow, the company will be ours." While they conspired, Henry was arriving in Pine Creek. The parish was simple but welcoming. Father Anthony met him at the door. "You must be her father. She has your eyes. Where is she?" "In the back room, resting. Go easy. She's been through a lot." Henry walked in slowly. Melissa was sitting on an old couch wrapped in a blanket, her feet bandaged. When she saw her father, her eyes filled with tears. "Daddy!" Henry crossed the room in 2 strides and hugged her as if he wanted to fuse them into one. Melissa cried against his chest, sobbing out all the fear, all the loneliness, all the terror of the last few months. "You're here, you're really here," Henry repeated, kissing the top of her head. "I knew it. My heart knew you were alive." "They took me. They hid me. And Aunt Celia tried to help, but she was scared." "I know, sweetheart. I know everything now, and they're going to pay. But first, let's get you somewhere safe." Joanna entered discreetly. "Henry, the doctor is waiting in the car. We need to get her checked out." Melissa clutched her father's shirt. "Don't leave me, Daddy." "Never again, my love. Never again." After the doctor confirmed that Melissa was physically okay, just malnourished and superficially injured, they began the journey back. But not to the mansion. Joanna took them to a discreet hotel on the outskirts of the city, registered under a false name. In the safe room, Henry finally heard everything. Melissa told him about the day at the estate, how Patricia had taken her for a walk and then suddenly there were strange men. How she'd woken up in the house upstate, a prisoner but not physically mistreated. How Celia had cared for her with fear in her eyes. And crucially, how she'd overheard Patricia and Lucas on the phone planning not only to hide her, but also to take everything that belonged to her father. "They wanted me to disappear so you would be sad," Melissa explained with childlike logic. "And when you got really sad, they made you sign papers, Aunt Celia told me." Henry recorded everything on video with her permission. It was proof, testimony. The truth from the mouth of a child that no one could ignore. "Now comes the hard part," he said to Joanna, after Melissa had fallen into an exhausted sleep. "I need to get Patricia and Lucas to confess to everything in a way that's recorded, documented, irrefutable." "I have an idea," Joanna replied, "but it's going to require you to be the best actor of your life. For what they did to my daughter." Henry's eyes were as cold as a predator's. "I'd do anything." The plan was risky, but necessary. Henry would spend the next 2 days setting the perfect trap. Melissa would stay hidden in the hotel under the protection of guards hired by Joanna, while he returned to the mansion to stage the performance of his life. The morning after their reunion, Henry returned home as if nothing had happened. He found Patricia on the veranda, drinking coffee and flipping through a design magazine. "Hi, darling. Good trip?" she asked without looking up. "Productive. Took care of some loose ends." Henry poured himself a coffee, watching her every move. "Where's Lucas?" "He should be here soon. We have some final documents for you to sign today, about the company restructuring." "Ah, yes." Henry sat down, feigning exhaustion. "Patricia, I've been thinking a lot lately. About Melissa, about everything." She finally looked at him, alert. "What do you mean?" "I think I need to accept that she's gone, that she's not coming back." Henry forced his voice to crack. "I've been clinging to false hope and it's destroying me." Patricia took his hand, her eyes shining with something she tried to pass off as compassion. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're starting to accept it. It's the first step to healing." "Yeah, and thinking about it, I think you and Lucas are right. I need to step away from the company for a while. Maybe travel, see new places, let you two run the business." "Are you sure?" Patricia could barely hide her excitement. "I am. In fact, I was thinking of signing a general power of attorney over to you both. I trust you and my brother. You're the only people who have supported me through this difficult time." Patricia squeezed his hand tighter. "We'll take care of everything. You can rest easy." When Lucas arrived an hour later, Patricia had already told him everything. Henry's brother could barely disguise the triumph in his eyes. "For real, bro? You want to hand everything over to us?" "Not everything. Just the operational management." Henry maintained his weary tone. "I'll still be the owner, of course, but you'll decide the day-to-day, investments, contracts, partnerships. I trust your judgment." That's a lot of responsibility," Lucas said, but his eyes said the opposite. "You deserve it." Henry stood up. "I'm going to rest for a bit. Can you get the documents ready for me to sign tomorrow?" "Of course," Patricia replied quickly. "I'll have the lawyers draw everything up today." After Henry went upstairs, Lucas and Patricia looked at each other. It was too good to be true. "You think he suspects anything?" Lucas whispered. "Impossible. He's broken, defeated. He's finally accepted that he lost his daughter and is giving up on everything." Patricia smiled. "Tomorrow, when he signs, we'll have total control. After that, it's just a matter of time until a convenient accident." "Careful, Patricia. We can't get sloppy now." "I know, but we're so close." She looked around the luxurious mansion. "All of this will be ours." What they didn't know was that Joanna had installed discreet microphones throughout the house during Henry's trip. Every word was being recorded on a secure server. At the hotel, Melissa was watching cartoons, but her mind was on her father. He had promised everything would be okay, that she could go home soon, but the girl was scared. What if Patricia and Lucas found out about the plan? What if they hurt her daddy? Joanna sat down next to her. "Your dad is very smart, you know. He's pretending so he can catch the bad guys." "Like in a movie?" "Exactly like in a movie. And you're the heroine who escaped and warned the hero." Melissa smiled for the first time in days. "So it's all going to be okay?" "It is." Joanna hugged the girl. "In 2 days, you'll be home again. And those bad people will go far away. Forever." That night, Henry had dinner with Patricia and Lucas. The conversation was superficial, but he noticed the looks they exchanged, the restrained smiles. They were celebrating prematurely. "Henry," Lucas began, pouring wine, "tomorrow, besides the power of attorney, we'd like you to sign a few other documents, property transfers, stock restructuring, all to protect the assets while you're traveling." "Of course, I trust you." Henry drank his water, never again touching anything they prepared. "You're my family." Patricia touched his face. "And you're ours. Always." The hypocrisy was nauseating, but Henry kept his mask on. The next day, the mansion's conference room was prepared. On the large mahogany table, stacks of documents awaited Henry's signature. Lucas's lawyers were present, but Robert Miller had been conveniently kept away under some excuse. "Shall we begin?" Lucas asked, eager. "First, I have a request," Henry said calmly. "I want to understand exactly what I'm signing. Can you explain each document to me?" Lucas and Patricia exchanged an irritated glance but agreed. They spent the next hour explaining every clause. Henry asked questions, requested clarifications, took notes. It was all being recorded, of course, every explanation, every confirmation that these documents would transfer total control to them. Finally, Lucas pushed a pen toward him. "There, now all we need is your signature." Henry picked up the pen. He twirled it between his fingers. He looked at Patricia, then at Lucas. "I have one last question." "Go on," Patricia replied, trying to sound patient. "Where is my daughter?" The silence that followed was absolute. Lucas turned pale. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Henry," she began, "you know where she is. Melissa. She got lost at the estate. It was a tragedy." "Was it?" Henry placed the pen on the table. "Because I've received different information from a very reliable source." "What information?" Lucas tried to look confused, but panic was clear in his eyes. "That my daughter didn't get lost. That she was hidden. By you." "That's absurd." Patricia stood up, her voice rising. "Who's putting these crazy ideas in your head? You're not well, Henry. The grief is making you delusional." "Maybe." Henry remained calm. "Or maybe I'm more clear-headed now than I have been in months. Funny how my head cleared up when I stopped drinking the tea you make for me every night, the one with the slightly bitter taste." "Henry, for God's sake," Lucas intervened. "You're accusing your own wife of poisoning you. This is paranoia." "Is it?" Henry opened his briefcase and took out some papers. "Because the lab that analyzed samples of the tea found sedatives. Nothing lethal, of course, just enough to keep me confused, pliable, dependent." Patricia sat down slowly, the color draining from her face. "Where did you get that?" "I have my resources, just like I found out about the 3 offshore companies you created, about the asset transfers, about the fact that Patricia's first husband died under convenient circumstances before he could testify against her in a fraud case." Lucas stood up abruptly. "This doesn't prove anything." "No, what about this?" Henry placed a photo on the table of Melissa leaving the church in Pine Creek, taken by the priest on the day of her rescue. "Or this." He tapped his tablet, and a video began to play. It was Melissa in the hotel telling her story, the kidnapping, the captivity, the conversations she'd overheard. Everything. Patricia staggered to her feet. Where did you find her?" "She found me. Or rather, she escaped from where you were holding her prisoner and found me." Henry smiled coldly. "My 8-year-old daughter was smarter than the 2 of you combined." Lucas ran for the door, but it opened before he reached the handle. Joanna entered, accompanied by 2 state police detectives. "Mr. Lucas Cole? Mrs. Patricia Cole?" Detective Joanna Fisher showed her badge. "You're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, fraud, and attempted embezzlement." "This is ridiculous," Patricia screamed. "He's making it all up. The girl is dead." "Is she?" Henry went to the door and waved. Melissa walked in, small but brave, holding Robert Miller's hand. The shock on Patricia and Lucas's faces would have been comical under other circumstances. Melissa looked at them, her eyes showing no fear, only determination. "I'm not dead. And my dad knows everything you did." Patricia tried one last gambit, falling to her knees. "Melissa, sweetie, it was all a misunderstanding. We were protecting you from—" "From who?" Melissa interrupted. "From yourselves." The officers cuffed Lucas and Patricia while reading them their rights. Joanna had everything: the recordings, the documents, Melissa's testimony, even a partial confession from Celia, who had been found and agreed to testify in exchange for protection for her family. As they were being led away, Patricia looked at Henry one last time. "You tricked us." "No." Henry hugged Melissa. "You tricked yourselves into thinking you could destroy my family and get away with it. You underestimated a father's love and the courage of an incredible little girl." After the house emptied, father and daughter were left alone in the room. Henry knelt in front of her. "You were so brave, Mel, so smart. You saved me just as much as I saved you. We're a team, Daddy. The best team in the world." They hugged, and for the first time in months the embrace held no pain, only relief, love, and the promise of a new beginning. 3 weeks later, the morning light streamed softly through the window of Melissa's room. She woke up slowly, stretching on the comfortable mattress, hugging the teddy bear that had been recovered from her belongings. For a moment, still half asleep, the panic of memory tried to creep in, but then she heard the familiar clatter of dishes from the kitchen, the smell of pancakes being made, and she remembered. She was home. She was safe. She was with her dad. Henry was in the kitchen when she came downstairs, barefoot, in her pajamas, her hair a mess. He smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile she thought she'd never see again. "Morning, sleepyhead. I made your favorite pancakes with strawberries and syrup." Melissa climbed onto a stool and watched her dad serve breakfast. The kitchen felt different, simpler, cozier. Henry had let go of the entire old household staff, the ones hired by Patricia, and now they only had help from Mrs. Davis, a cheerful woman recommended by Robert, who came 3 times a week. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always, sweetheart." "Are you still sad about everything that happened?" Henry sat down next to her, thoughtful. "I am, but not in the same way. Before it was a sadness that was drowning me. Now it's more like a scar. It hurts sometimes, but it reminds me that I survived, that we survived." Melissa took a bite of pancake. "And Aunt Celia, you said you were going to help her." "I already did. She and her grandson are in a safe apartment in another city, far away from anyone connected to the bad guys." Henry still had trouble saying Patricia and Lucas's names. "And she's seeing a therapist, just like you are." The sessions with Dr. Marina had started a week after the rescue. Melissa had resisted at first, afraid of reliving the trauma, but Dr. Marina was kind and patient. They played with clay, they drew, and little by little, Melissa began to process everything that had happened. The nightmares still came, but less often. "We have a surprise today," Henry announced after breakfast. "What surprise?" "It's a surprise, silly. If I tell you, it won't be one." An hour later, they were in the car driving through the city. Melissa tried to guess where they were going, but Henry just smiled mysteriously. Finally, they pulled up in front of an animal shelter. "Remember when you asked me for a dog?" Henry asked. "Before everything happened?" Melissa's eyes went wide. "For real, Daddy? We're getting a dog?" "If you still want one." "I do. I really do." Inside the shelter, a volunteer greeted them enthusiastically. Melissa walked through the kennel area, looking at each dog carefully. There were excited puppies, calm adult dogs, all waiting for a family. Then she saw him, in the corner of a run, a medium-sized tan-colored mutt with a bandaged paw, watching her with sad eyes. "That one," Melissa pointed. "I want that one." "Oh, that's Thunder," the volunteer explained. "He was found injured on the street. He was scared and malnourished, but he's recovering well." "Just like me," Melissa whispered. Henry knelt beside her. "Are you sure? There are younger, more playful puppies." "I'm sure. He needs a family, just like I needed to come back to you." Henry felt his eyes sting. "Then Thunder is coming home with us." While the volunteer prepared the adoption papers, Melissa sat on the floor of the kennel. Thunder approached slowly, still wary, but when she held out her hand, he sniffed it and then licked her fingers. The girl laughed, the sound filling Henry's heart with joy. It was the first genuine laugh he'd heard since the rescue. In the following days, a routine began to form. Melissa went back to school, though at a new, smaller and more welcoming one. Henry had made a point of speaking personally with the principal, explaining the situation without going into traumatic detail. Melissa would just be another student, with no spotlight, no invasive questions. The other kids accepted her easily. She made friends with Laura, a girl with glasses who loved to draw as much as she did, and with Peter, a funny boy who always had terrible jokes that made everyone laugh. At night, Henry would help her with her homework, they'd make dinner together, and always, before bed, he would tuck her in and read her a story. It didn't matter that Melissa could already read on her own. That ritual was theirs, sacred, unbreakable. "Daddy," Melissa said one night as Henry finished reading a fairy tale. "Do you have a girlfriend now?" Henry laughed. "No, Mel, why?" "Just wondering. You should have one, so you won't be lonely." "I'm not lonely. I have you and Thunder and our team. But when I grow up and move out, you'll be lonely." Henry stroked her hair. "When you grow up and move out, I'll be too proud to feel lonely. But don't worry. I have a full life. You, the company, my friends." "Okay, but if you meet a nice lady, you can date her. But I have to meet her first and approve." "Deal," Henry agreed, smiling. "Now sleep. You have school tomorrow." A month after the arrests, Patricia and Lucas's trial made headlines. Henry made sure to keep Melissa away from the media, but he testified himself. The evidence was irrefutable. The recordings, the documents, Celia's testimony, the fraudulent financial records. Patricia tried to claim she had been manipulated by Lucas. Lucas tried to claim he had been manipulated by Patricia, but Joanna presented proof that they had planned it together from the beginning. The affair between the sister-in-law and brother-in-law had started months before Melissa's kidnapping, and the plan to take Henry's fortune had been meticulously orchestrated. The sentence was severe: 12 years in prison for both, for kidnapping, extortion and fraud. They were also ordered to return all embezzled funds and pay damages to Henry and Melissa for emotional distress. When Robert brought the news, Henry didn't feel joy, just a void where the anger used to be. "You don't seem happy about the win," Robert commented. "It's not about winning, it's about justice. And justice doesn't erase what Melissa went through. It doesn't give me back the 3 months I spent thinking my daughter was dead. But she's here, alive. That's the real victory." Henry nodded. "You're right." 6 months after the rescue, Henry made a major decision. He sold the mansion. The place was too contaminated with bad memories. He bought a smaller, cozier house in a quiet, gated community with other families. It had a big backyard where Thunder could run, a perfect tree for building a treehouse, and neighbors who became friends. At the company, he made changes. He brought in a new, trustworthy team, completely restructured management, and created a social investment fund in Melissa's name, dedicated to helping child victims of kidnapping and abuse. It would be her legacy, turning pain into help. On a Sunday afternoon, Henry and Melissa were in the backyard of their new house. He was helping her paint the treehouse they had built together over the past few weeks. Melissa had chosen the color, a cheerful, sunny yellow. "Daddy, look! I painted it without smudging." "It's perfect, sweetheart. You're an artist." Melissa climbed down the ladder and hugged her dad, leaving a yellow paint smudge on his shirt. Henry didn't mind. "You know what I was thinking?" she said. "What's that?" "That we're lucky." "Lucky? After everything?" "Yeah. Because it could have been worse. But we're both strong, and we have each other. That's lucky." Henry hugged his daughter tighter, marveling at the wisdom of this 8-year-old child. "You're absolutely right. We are very lucky." That evening, after dinner, Henry found Melissa in her room, writing in a new journal Dr. Marina had given her. "What are you writing?" "My story. The doctor said writing helps you process things, so I'm telling everything that happened, but my way, with a happy ending." "Can I read it?" "When I'm done. But I'll give you a spoiler. In the end, the princess doesn't need a prince to save her. She saves herself. And the king, who's her dad, helps, because they're a team." Henry kissed the top of her head. "I love that ending." 2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday, Henry hosted a barbecue at their house. He invited Robert and his family, Joanna and her partner, Mrs. Davis, Dr. Marina, and the families of Melissa's new friends. The backyard filled with laughter, music, and the smell of good food. Melissa ran across the lawn with Laura and Peter, chasing Thunder, who barked excitedly. Every so often, she would look over at her dad and give him a wide grin just because. Because she was happy, because she was alive. Robert came over to Henry as he flipped burgers on the grill. "You've done an incredible job, my friend. A lot of fathers wouldn't have had the strength you did." It wasn't strength, it was love. And it was also Melissa. She saved me just as much as I saved her. Still, look at her. She's happy, well-adjusted, smiling. It could have been so different. I know. Henry watched his daughter. And I'm grateful every single day. Every laugh, every nightmare that doesn't happen, every normal moment is a gift. As evening fell and everyone had gone home, Henry and Melissa sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Thunder slept at their feet, exhausted from all the playing. "Daddy," Melissa said softly, "do you think I'll ever forget everything that happened?" Henry thought carefully before answering. "I don't think you'll forget, but I think it will hurt less, and one day the memory of the bad months will be smaller than the memories of all the good years we're still going to have." "I like that idea." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." As the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, father and daughter sat there in comfortable silence. They didn't need words. Each other's presence was enough. Henry thought about everything they had been through, the pain, the fear, the betrayal. But he also thought about Melissa's courage, Robert's friendship, Joanna's competence, Celia's kindness, Dr. Marina's wisdom. He thought about how good people still existed, even when the bad ones tried to win. And looking at Melissa, he saw not a victim, but a survivor. A strong, smart girl capable of turning trauma into growth. She was going to be incredible, he knew. She already was. "Should we go in?" Melissa yawned. "I'm sleepy." "Let's go. Tomorrow is another day." "A good day?" she asked, as she did every night since she'd come back. "The best day," Henry answered, as he did every night since she'd come back. And so, hand in hand, they went inside. Thunder followed them, his tail wagging. The door closed softly behind them, leaving the shadows of the past outside. Inside, there was light. There was love. There was a future. And above all, there was a second chance they wouldn't waste. Because Henry Cole had learned the most important lesson. True power wasn't in corporate empires or accumulated fortunes, but in the ability to love, to protect, to rebuild. And Melissa Cole, at 8 years old, had learned that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a spark of hope. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but moving forward in spite of it. And that sometimes the most terrible stories can have the most beautiful endings. Not because evil was defeated, though it was, but because love prevailed. And it always would. End of story. If Henry and Melissa's journey touched your heart, know that you'll find many other stories of resilience, love, and second chances here. Families who find their way back to each other, hearts that heal, and ordinary people showing extraordinary courage. Because we are all, in some way, a Henry searching for our Melissa, or a Melissa finding our way back home. If these words resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that warm the soul, and in the comments tell us, do you believe love can conquer any adversity? Your story might inspire someone today. Until the next journey.